My wife told me she wanted a divorce on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing a federal banking violation at our kitchen table. She did not know that. She thought I was reading email. She walked into the kitchen at 6:42 a.m. in a cream-colored blouse I had never seen before, a perfume I had never smelled before, and the kind of confident posture you only have when you've already decided the outcome of a conversation you are about to start. I looked up from my laptop. "Wesley, I want a divorce." I closed the laptop. "Okay." She stared at me. The coffee pot was finishing its cycle. The morning light was coming through the window above the sink. Outside, a neighbor's dog was barking at the mailman who came every Tuesday at 6:45. That's it. That's your response. I noticed. You noticed what? Everything. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that has weight to it. The kind that bends a room. Cassidy was 46 and away from me across the kitchen island. Her hand was on the granite. Her wedding ring was already gone. She had taken it off some morning when I wasn't watching, and I had been watching for 4 months, and she still managed to take it off without me noticing the exact moment. She blinked twice. "You're going to fight it. You're going to make this difficult. No, you're not going to even ask why. I know why." She tilted her head just slightly. "Then what are you going to do, Wesley?" I tapped the closed laptop on the table twice. "I'm going to do my job, Cassidy. Same as always." She did not understand what I meant. She would in 9 months. She picked up her travel mug from the counter, filled it with coffee, and left the kitchen without saying another word. Her heels clicked on the hardwood. The front door closed softly. Her car started in the driveway. She drove away. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that. Then I opened the laptop again. I went back to reading the suspicious activity report I had been reviewing when she walked in. Langford Capital Holdings transaction reference number 8847, LC, 2023. The fourth one I had flagged in 4 months. I made a small notation in the margin. She filed today. Then I went back to work. My name is Wesley Coltrane. I am 45 years old. Cassidy is 38. We have been married for 12 years. I work as a senior compliance officer at Continental Heritage Bank in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have worked there for 16 years. My job is to look at numbers other people don't want me to look at. My job is to read transaction reports for our commercial banking clients and identify suspicious patterns. Round-trip transactions, layering, structuring, beneficial ownership obfuscation, the technical vocabulary of money laundering. When I find something that looks wrong, I file a suspicious activity report with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. The federal government calls it AS. We call it AS. Nobody calls it anything else. I am the kind of man who is good at this work because I am the kind of man who notices small things. I notice when a perfume is new. I notice when a wedding ring is missing for 13 seconds before it is replaced. I notice when a wife who has been working late for 3 months suddenly stops complaining about it. I notice when a Langford Capital Holdings transaction has a tax structure that does not match its stated business purpose. I notice all of these things. I just don't say anything about most of them. My father was a public school principal in suburban Atlanta. He died of a stroke in 2018. The last thing he ever said to me in a hospital room with the smell of disinfectant and bad coffee was, "Wesley, the reason you don't talk much is because you actually listen. Don't lose that." I have not lost it. When Cassidy was promoted to Vice President of Operations at Langford Capital Holdings in 2022, a promotion that had moved very fast, I did what I was supposed to do at the bank. I disclosed the personal connection in writing to my supervisor, the compliance director. I expected to be removed from any work involving Langford Capital. The compliance director, after a long conversation with the bank's general counsel, instructed me to remain on Langford-related matters precisely because the connection meant I would notice patterns others might miss. The disclosure went on file. The supervision was documented. The bank's legal team reviewed every SRI filed on Langford Capital before it went out. I was not operating in a gray area. I was operating with full institutional cover. That cover would matter 18 months later. In July of 2023, 4 months before my wife asked me for a divorce, I went to a corporate dinner at the Ritz-Carlton in Uptown Charlotte. Cassid's company, Langford Capital Holdings, was hosting. Cassidy had been promoted to Vice President of Operations a year earlier. She had gone from executive assistant to VP in 3 years. She did not have an MBA. She did not have prior operations experience. The promotion had surprised people in the firm. Cassidy had explained it to me by saying her boss saw something in her. I had said nothing at the time. The dinner was held in a private dining room on the 12th floor with a view of the Charlotte skyline. There were maybe 40 people. Cocktails first, then a seated dinner. I watched Stockton Langford from across the room. He was 58, tall, silver hair, charcoal suit cut by a tailor on Bond Street, London, the kind of man who walked into a room and immediately took up the most space without doing anything visible to take it up. He had been twice divorced. 3 adult children from his first marriage. Net worth approximately $340 million. He owned a horse farm in Asheville, a penthouse in Uptown, and a beach house in Charleston. His ex-wives both lived in significantly diminished circumstances. There were rumors about why. I watched him work the room. He shook hands with the firm's senior partners. He laughed at a joke from one of the younger analysts. He kissed the wife of his chief financial officer on both cheeks. He moved with the practiced ease of a man who had done this 500 times. Then I watched him stop next to Cassidy. She was talking to 2 other VPs near the bar. She had a glass of white wine in her right hand. Her left hand was at her side. Stockton came up. Behind her. His left hand briefly touched her lower back. It was there for 2 seconds, maybe 3. She did not flinch. She did not move away. She did not even react with surprise. That meant it was not the first time. I was standing across the room. I had a glass of bourbon in my hand. I was talking to a man named Howard Beam who worked in the firm's accounting department. Howard was telling me a long story about his daughter's college applications. I was nodding. I was smiling at appropriate moments. I was watching my wife being touched by her boss. I did not say anything. When Cassidy and I left the dinner at 10:30 p.m., she got in the passenger seat and looked at her phone. We drove home in silence. I did not bring up Stockton. I did not bring up the touch. I did not bring up the fact that she had been wearing a perfume that night I had never smelled before. She fell asleep in the car on the drive home. When we got into bed, she said, "That was a long night. I'm exhausted." I said, "Yeah." She turned over and was asleep within 4 minutes. I lay in the dark for 2 hours. I thought about Howard Beam's daughter. I thought about the bourbon. I thought about the way Stockton's hand had moved. Then I started thinking about Lanford Capital's recent transaction patterns. 3 days later, on a Thursday morning, a suspicious activity report came across my desk at the bank. The transaction was from a commercial account belonging to Langford Capital Holdings. Something didn't match. The stated business purpose was investment fund consolidation. The actual transaction structure was a circular flow through 3 shell companies registered in the British Virgin Islands. The funds came from one offshore account, passed through Lanford Capital, went out to a different offshore account, came back through a different chain of shell companies, and ended up roughly where they started, minus a small percentage that disappeared into Lanford Capital's operating revenue. It was textbook layering, the kind of money laundering pattern they teach you in CAM certification class. I sat at my desk for an hour with the printout in front of me. I pulled up Continental Heritage's complete transaction history for Lanford Capital Holdings going back 2 years. I exported it to a spreadsheet. I sorted by transaction type. I cross-referenced the counterparty accounts against publicly available beneficial ownership databases. I found 3 more transactions with the same pattern. Same week, same month, different shell companies, but the same flow architecture. In the same week, my wife was being touched by Stockton Langford's hand at a corporate dinner. Stockton Langford was probably laundering money through my bank. I did not yet know the 2 were connected. I would. For the next 3 months, August, September, October of 2023, I conducted 2 investigations. The financial one I conducted at work. I built a paper trail. I documented every Langford Capital transaction that fit the pattern. I identified the shell company web. I began to understand the structure. I made formal SAR filings on each suspicious transaction. They went to Finanson. They went into a federal database. The personal one I conducted at home. I noticed Cassid's late nights, the new clothes, the new shoes, the new handbag from a brand that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. The weekend team retreats that were never held in any traceable location. I noticed when she came home at 1 o'clock in the morning smelling like a different cologne and got into the shower before saying hello to me. I noticed when she stopped wearing her wedding ring on certain days. I noticed when she started taking her phone with her into the bathroom. I never confronted her. I just watched, documented, waited. I started keeping a small notebook in the bottom drawer of my home office desk. Brown leather, cheap, the kind of notebook a contractor uses to track job site hours. I wrote dates and observations. August 14th, C wore new perfume to team dinner. Came home 12:40 a.m. showered before bed. August 28th, C's phone rang at 11:47 p.m. She took it into the hallway. I heard low voice. 3 minutes. September 9th, C went to weekend retreat in Hilton Head. No paperwork ever produced. No receipts in her shared expense file. October 2nd, C wore wedding ring at family dinner with her parents. Removed at 9:14 p.m. in the bathroom. Did not put it back on for the drive home. By mid-October, the notebook had 32 pages. On the morning of Saturday, October 28th, 2023, Cassidy was in the shower upstairs. Her phone was face down on the kitchen counter. It buzzed. I am not the kind of man who reads his wife's phone, but the buzz happened 5 times in 90 seconds. And I noticed the lock screen kept flashing the same name, SL. I picked up the phone. It had been left unlocked. I read the most recent text. After divorce soon, no more sneaking around. The firm needs you in writing. We'll set up Carolina Heritage transactions through your name. Cleaner that way. Discuss tonight. S. I sat down on a kitchen chair. I read the text 3 times. The kitchen was very quiet. The dishwasher was running. The shower upstairs was running. A bird was singing outside the window. Stockton Langford was not just having an affair with my wife. He was planning to use her after our divorce to put fraudulent transactions in her name to insulate himself from federal exposure. He was recruiting her into a money laundering conspiracy. She probably did not know it yet or did not fully understand what she was being recruited into. The phrase, "the firm needs you in writing," is the kind of phrase a CEO uses when he is going to ask a subordinate to sign documents she should not be signing. I took a photograph of the text screen with my own phone. I put Cassid's phone face down exactly where she had left it. I went to my home office. I closed the door. I sat at my desk for an hour. I did not move. I thought about my children. Briar was 9 then. Bryn was 6. They were upstairs in their rooms watching cartoons. They did not know what was happening. They did not know what was going to happen. I thought about my father in that hospital room. Don't lose that. I thought about every morning for the next year. Every morning I would wake up next to a woman who had decided I was something to be discarded. Every morning until she filed for divorce and made it official. I thought about the alternative. Confront her. Make a scene. Rage. Call her parents. Call Stockton's wife. That alternative felt good for about 30 seconds. Then I thought about the Lanford capital sitting in a federal database. Thought about the 4 shell companies in the British Virgin Islands. Thought about the 11 months of pattern documentation I now had. Thought about a man named Reginald Whitlow. Then I made one phone call. Reginald Whitlow was 64 years old, senior partner at Whitlow & Pratt, a Charlotte litigation firm, former federal prosecutor, 8 years with the U.S. Attorney's Office, Western District of North Carolina, the kind of lawyer other lawyers were afraid of. I had testified in a case he prosecuted 7 years earlier, different matter, mortgage fraud at a previous bank where I had been a junior compliance analyst. We had spent 11 hours together preparing my testimony. He had told me in the elevator on the last day, "Wesley, if you ever need a lawyer, call me. Not someone like me." Me. I called him. He answered on the second ring. "Reginald, this is Wesley Cold Train. We worked together on the Pacific Trust case 7 years ago." "Wesley, I remember. What can I do for you? I have a problem. It is bigger than I can handle alone." He paused. "Are you in danger right now?" "No." "Are your children in danger?" "Not immediate, but maybe eventual." "Can you come to my office Monday evening, 7 p.m.? I'll clear the building." "Yes." "Bring everything." Don't leave anything out. We will figure out the strategy together. Reginald? Yes. I'm going to need you to be more than a lawyer for this. I understand. He hung up. I met Reginald at his office on Monday, October 30th, 2023. The building was quiet. Most of the lights were off. He had told the security guard at the front desk to expect me. He met me in the lobby. We took the elevator to the 17th floor. His corner office had a view of the Charlotte skyline. Tall windows along mahogany conference table. He gestured for me to sit. I had brought 2 folders. The first folder contained my Langford Capital documentation, every SAR, every transaction analysis, every shell company connection, every flowchart I had built over 4 months. The second folder contained the affair documentation, the corporate dinner, the notebook with 32 pages of observations, the photograph of the text on Cassid's phone. Reginald put on reading glasses. He read for 40 minutes without speaking. When he looked up, his face had changed. Something behind his eyes had moved. Wesley. Yes. Do you know what you have here? I have a divorce and a federal crime. You have something much bigger than that. He stood up. He walked to the window. He looked at the skyline for a moment. Then he turned back to me. Stockton Langford has been on the FBI's radar for 6 years. 2 prior investigations have stalled because no insider has ever cooperated. The Bureau knows the laundering is happening. They cannot prove the chain of custody. Why not? Because the people who have direct knowledge of his operations are people who benefit from his operations. They will not testify. They have too much to lose. And me? You are different. You are a compliance officer at a regulated bank with documented SR filings on Langford Capital transactions. You have been doing your job. Your testimony will be unimpeachable. You are the witness they have been waiting for. He walked back to the conference table. He sat down across from me. But there is a problem. Tell me, if you file for divorce now, Wesley Cassidy and Stockton will see it as the beginning of a fight. They will lawyer up. They will cover their tracks. Stockton will potentially move the laundering operation offshore. The federal case becomes much harder to build. We may lose the window. Then what do you suggest? He looked at me for a long moment. I suggest you do nothing. Nothing. You don't confront Cassidy. You don't tell her you know about the affair. You don't tell her you know about Stockton's operation. You let her file for divorce when she's ready. You play the heartbroken husband. You agree to whatever settlement she demands. You sign every paper Sanford Kellicott. And yes, I know who her divorce attorney will be. Stockton uses him for everything. Puts in front of you. For how long? As long as it takes us to build the federal case in the background. My estimate is 9 months. 9 months? Yes. And then? And then we wait until the day of the final divorce hearing. Cassidy will think she has won. Stockton will be in the gallery, smug, watching her victory lap. That is the moment we unseal the federal indictment in open court. The moment the divorce decree is supposed to be signed. I sat with that for a long time. Reginald watched me think. He did not push. He did not sell. He did not make promises. He waited. Reginald. Yes. What does this cost me personally? Not money, personally. It costs you 9 months of looking like a defeated man to the woman who is destroying you. You will sign every document she gives you. You will give up the house. You will give up most of the custody. You will look like a fool to your friends, to your family, to your own children temporarily. Your daughter will probably not look at you for a while. Your son will cry. You will move out of your home. You will move into an apartment alone. Your mother will worry. And then in 120-minute hearing, the entire arrangement reverses. Stockton goes to federal prison. Cassid's settlement collapses because her financial backing collapses. The custody changes because federal investigators name her as an unwitting facilitator. Everything she thought she won goes away in real time. In front of a judge, in front of a courtroom, with Stockton in handcuffs. You are guaranteeing this. I am not guaranteeing it. I am telling you that with the evidence you have brought me, the probability of this outcome is high. But the federal government is not always predictable. There are political considerations. There are competing priorities. There is no 100% in this work. What is the probability? 85%. And if it doesn't work, then you have given up 9 months of your life and you have signed away everything in a divorce settlement that you cannot reverse. That is the risk. I sat with that. I thought about Briar's face when I would tell her I was moving out. I thought about Bryn's face. I thought about Cassidy walking into a courtroom in 9 months, smug, ready to claim her victory. Reginald, yes, I'm in. He nodded slowly. Then we begin. For the next 9 months, I played the role. Cassidy filed for divorce on Tuesday, November 7th, 2023, the morning after our kitchen conversation. Sanford Callicott was her attorney. Reginald was right about that. I signed every document Sanford put in front of me. The custody arrangement every other weekend. The asset distribution. She got the house. I got the apartment furniture in my car. The alimony $1,800 a month for 6 years. I moved out on November 18th, 2023 to a small apartment near my office. 2 bedrooms, beige carpet, the kind of place a recently divorced compliance officer is expected to rent. I told my mother, Edith. She was 71 years old, living in Asheville. I drove out to her house on a Saturday and told her over coffee at her kitchen table. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Your father would be proud of how you are handling this." I did not tell her about Reginald. I did not tell her about the federal investigation. I did not tell her I was playing a role. I let her think her son was being a graceful, dignified man during a hard divorce. She would understand later. I told my best friend at the bank, Marcellus Branch. He was 38, also a compliance officer, the most analytical person I had ever worked with. We sat in the parking deck of Continental Heritage at the end of a workday in late November. Marcellus was the only person at work who knew anything about my situation. I told him a partial version. Cassidy was leaving. I was moving out. I did not tell him about Stockton. He did not ask. I told Briar, my daughter, and Bryn, my son, together on a Sunday afternoon in our living room. Cassidy was at the house. We sat the children on the couch. Cassidy did most of the talking. She used phrases like, "We both decided, and this will be best for everyone, and Daddy is going to live in a different house, but we will all still see each other." Briar stared at her hands. Bryn cried. I sat there with my hands on my knees, and I did not say anything because there was nothing to say that would not make it worse. Briar did not look at me for the next month. Bryn called me 3 nights a week from Cassidy's phone just to ask if I was eating dinner. I told him yes every time. Some nights I had not eaten dinner. I told him yes anyway. Every 2 weeks I met Reginald and Federal Agent Benedict Yu at a nondescript office on Caldwell Street in Charlotte. A small office building between a tax preparer and a chiropractor. The kind of building no one notices. I delivered I delivered Continental Heritage Bank communications about the Lanford account flags. I delivered my contemporaneous notes from the notebook. Agent Yu was 44 years old, Korean American, FBI Financial Crime Section, Charlotte Field Office. He had been working white-collar money laundering cases for 17 years. He read my materials in silence each meeting. He asked precise questions. He did not waste time. In December, you brought me an additional piece of news. Wesley, we have a second cooperator, Stockton's adult daughter, Beatatri Lanford, 32 years old. She has hated her father since his second divorce. She has known about the laundering for years. She came to us 6 weeks ago. That's good. It is more than good. It is the second pillar of the case. Your testimony plus hers makes this nearly bulletproof. In January, you brought another piece of news. We have a wiretap warrant on Stockton's personal cell phone. 30 days, renewable. In February, you brought the biggest piece. We have audio of Stockton instructing Cassidy on how to sign documents she should not be signing. He is recruiting her into the conspiracy in real time. We have her on tape responding with questions about her cut of the proceeds. She is asking about percentages, Wesley. She is not innocent. She is not knowing the full picture, but she is not innocent. I absorbed that. Will she be charged? Probably not criminally. The U.S. Attorney's Office will likely treat her as an unwitting facilitator who became negligent rather than knowing. That is the better legal posture for her and for the case. It keeps her from fighting. It also lets her testify against Stockton if needed and civil restitution. She will be subject to extensive civil restitution. The proceeds she has accepted from Langford Capital that exceed her legitimate salary will be recovered. That number is going to be significant. How significant? $340,000 over 4 years. I sat with that. In the meantime, Cassidy was triumphant. She had told her sister Marielle, recorded on a phone call that became wiretapped after Stockton's phones became subject to surveillance. Wesley was always going to be a small man. I just finally accepted it. I'm going to come out of this with a house, the kids, and a life with someone who actually has ambition. She told her mother in March. Stockton is going to take care of me. He has already promised I will not be like Mom was after the divorce from Dad. I will be in a different category entirely. Stockton told Cassidy at a private dinner at his Mears Park estate in April, recorded on his wiretapped phone via her end of the call. After the divorce is final, you'll come work directly with me. The firm needs your signature on certain transactions. We'll talk about the details. There is a lot of money in this for you. You are going to be very comfortable. She did not know she was being recruited into a federal crime. She thought she was getting promoted. She thought she was leveling up. In June of 2024, the federal grand jury indicted Stockton Langford on 12 counts of money laundering, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 3 counts of operating a continuing criminal enterprise. The indictment was sealed. The divorce hearing was scheduled for July 22, 2024. The plan was to unseal the indictment at the moment the hearing concluded. Reginald and I had one last meeting on July 18th, 4 days before the hearing. We sat in his office at 6 o'clock. In the evening, he poured 2 glasses of bourbon, the first time I had ever seen him drink during a meeting. Wesley, tomorrow morning, federal prosecutors will sign off on the unsealing schedule. The judge in our divorce case has already been briefed. She has signed off on a courtroom motion that will be filed during the hearing. What judge? The Honorable Octavia Dona, 61 years old. She has been on the family court bench for 19 years. Before that, she was a federal prosecutor herself. She understands she will not be surprised. She will not be theatrical. She will simply do her job. Is that good for us? It is excellent for us. He sipped his bourbon. Wesley, I want you to understand what is going to happen Monday morning. You are going to walk into that courtroom dressed as the man Cassidy thinks you are. Defeated, quiet, resigned. She is going to walk in dressed for victory. Stockton is going to be in the gallery on the respondent's side because he wants to witness Cassidy's win in person. That is who he is. Yes, the proceeding will start. Sanford Callicott will tell the judge there are no contested matters. Then I will rise and tell the judge there is one matter. The judge will ask me to proceed. I will hand her the federal indictment paperwork and the judge will read it. She will then take judicial notice of the indictment in open court on the record. The moment she reads the charges aloud, federal agents in the hallway will move into position. Stockton will hear the charges. He will try to leave. He will not get out of the courtroom hallway. And Cassidy will sit in that courtroom and watch her boss being arrested in real time. She will understand in the space of approximately 45 seconds that the man who was supposed to be her future is going to federal prison, that her financial future has just collapsed, that the divorce settlement she believed she was about to receive is going to be reversed because Stockton's assets will be frozen and her own assets will be subject to civil restitution. In one hearing, I drank my bourbon. Reginald. Yes. Will my children be safe? Your children are with your mother in Asheville on Monday. They will not be in the courtroom. You can call them after. And after you go back to your life. The custody arrangement gets modified within 30 days. You probably take primary physical custody. Cassidy gets supervised visitation. The federal investigation proceeds. Stockton goes to trial or takes a plea. The divorce gets renegotiated under new terms. I nodded. Then let's do this. He raised his glass to 9 months of silence. I raised mine. To 9 months of silence. July 22nd, 2024. 9 a.m. Mecklenburg County Courthouse. Courtroom 4B. Honorable Judge Octavia Dona, presiding. The hearing was set for routine final divorce decree approval. All terms had been agreed upon weeks earlier. The proceeding was expected to last under 30 minutes. I arrived at 8:45 a.m. I wore a charcoal suit that did not fit me as well as it had a year earlier. I had lost 12 pounds during the year of pretending to be a defeated man. I did not eat very much in those 9 months. I did not sleep very well in those 9 months. The mirror in the apartment had been showing me a thinner version of myself for some time. I sat at the petitioner's table next to Reginald. Reginald looked at me. "Are you ready?" "Yes." "Last chance to walk away from any of this." "I'm ready." He nodded. Cassidy arrived at 8:55 a.m. She was wearing a cream-colored Armani dress, the same color blouse she had worn the morning she told me she wanted a divorce. New shoes, pearl earrings I had never seen. Her hair was styled in a way she only styled it for important professional events. She walked into the courtroom like she was walking into a coronation. She glanced at me as she passed the petitioner's table. I did not react. She sat at the respondent's table next to Sanford Calicott. Sanford was 51 years old. Expensive suit, Italian cuffs, the kind of attorney who charged $700 an hour and was worth it for the right client. He did not know Stockton Langford had been indicted 3 weeks ago. He did not know the indictment was sealed. He did not know what was about to happen. Stockton Langford walked into the courtroom at 8:58 a.m. tall. Silver hair, charcoal suit that cost more than most people's cars. He sat in the gallery, second row, on the respondent's side. He sat back, crossed his legs, adjusted his cufflink. He smiled at Cassidy when she glanced back at him. She smiled back. The bailiff announced the judge at 9:01 a.m. "All rise." We rose. Judge Dona entered, black robe, reading glasses on a thin chain around her neck. She moved to the bench with an economy of motion that suggested decades of doing exactly this. "Be seated. This is the final hearing for Cold Train versus Cold Train. Divorce Case 2024 CV 1847. I have reviewed the consent decree submitted by both parties. Counsel, are there any final matters before I sign the decree?" Sanford Calicott stood. "Your Honor, the respondent has no further matters. We are prepared to proceed with the decree as drafted." Counsel for the petitioner. Reginald Whitlow stood. "Your Honor, the petitioner has one matter. We are filing an emergency motion." The courtroom went still. I watched Cassidy's face. Her smile flickered. Not gone yet, but flickered. Sanford stood up faster than he had probably stood up in years. "Your Honor, this proceeding is a final decree hearing. There are no contested matters. We received no notice of any motion. I object to any motion at this stage as procedurally improper. Counsel, I will hear the petitioner's motion before ruling on the objection." Mr. Whitlow. "Your Honor, the petitioner respectfully requests that this court take judicial notice of an unsealed federal indictment that was filed at 9 a.m. this morning in the United States District Court for the Western District of North Carolina. The indictment is directly relevant to the financial disclosures and asset distribution submitted in the consent decree currently before this court." Reginald walked to the bench. He handed a folder to the bailiff. The bailiff handed it to Judge Dona. The judge opened the folder. She read for 30 seconds. She turned to the second page. Read for another 20 seconds. She looked up. She looked directly at the gallery at Stockton. Stockton was looking at his phone. He did not yet realize the judge was looking at him. Counsel approached the bench. Both attorneys approached. Cassidy turned to look at me. For the first time in 9 months, I was not pretending to be broken. I looked back at her. Something in her face shifted. The smile was gone now. She mouthed, "What is this?" I said, "Nothing." The attorneys returned to their tables. Sanford was pale. His hands were trembling slightly. He sat down without looking at Cassidy. Judge Dona spoke. She spoke slowly, clearly, loud enough for the gallery to hear. "This court takes judicial notice that the United States government has filed an indictment against Mr. Stockton Langford of Charlotte, North Carolina, for 12 counts of money laundering under 18 U.S. Code, Section 1. 9564 counts of bank fraud under 18 U.S. Code Section 1344 and 3 counts of operating a continuing criminal enterprise under 18 U.S. Code Section 848. The indictment was unsealed at 9 a.m. this morning, simultaneously with the commencement of this hearing. The gallery erupted in murmuring. Stockton Langford looked up from his phone. His mouth opened. He stood up. "Your Honor, this is what is this? Mr. Langford, sit down. You are not a party to this proceeding. You will be addressed by federal authorities shortly." He did not sit down. He looked at Cassidy. Cassidy was already turned around in her chair looking at him. "Stockton. Stockton. What is she talking about?" He had no answer. He turned and started walking quickly toward the courtroom doors. The doors opened from the outside. Federal Agent Benedict, you stepped through. 3 more agents behind him. "Stockton Langford, you are under arrest for federal money laundering, bank fraud, and racketeering. Hands behind your back, please." Stockton stopped. His hands began to shake. He looked back at Cassidy through the open doorway. His mouth was open. He had no words. The entire performance of confidence he had carried for 60 years was collapsing in real time. "You stepped forward. Mr. Langford, hands behind your back." "I will not ask again." Stockton put his hands behind his back. The agents cuffed him. They led him out into the hallway. He did not look back. The doors closed. The courtroom was very quiet. Cassidy was still standing. She looked at her attorney. She looked at me. She looked at the judge. She looked back at me. "Wesley." I did not respond. "Wesley. Wesley. What is happening?" Sanford Callicott was reading the indictment paperwork. He was sweating through his shirt. He turned to Cassidy. "Mrs. Coltrane, we need to discuss something privately now." "Sanford, what is happening?" "Your boss has been arrested for federal money laundering, multiple counts, years of activity. The U.S. Attorney is also naming you as a person of interest in the related civil restitution proceedings." "I what?" Judge Dona spoke. "Mrs. Coltrane, do you wish to proceed with the final decree as drafted, or do you wish to request a continuance given today's developments?" Cassidy could not speak. Sanford responded for her. "Your Honor, given the federal investigation and its potential implications for asset disclosure, the respondent moves for a 30-day continuance pending review of new information. Granted. New hearing date, November 12, 2024. We are adjourned." The gavel struck. I stood up. I turned. I walked down the aisle of the gallery, past Stockton's now empty seat, past Cassidy, out the courtroom doors. I did not look back. Outside the courthouse, on the steps, Reginald caught up with me. He did not say anything. We stood there for a moment in the July heat. Cars passed on the street. A pigeon landed on the railing. Then he said, "How do you feel?" I thought about it. "Quiet." He nodded. "That's about right." Stockton Langford spent the next 18 months fighting federal charges. He hired the best defense attorneys money could buy. He hired 3 of them simultaneously. They could not save him. The evidence was overwhelming. The cooperating witnesses were credible. His own daughter, Beatrix, was prepared to testify against him. He took a plea deal in February 2026. 14 years federal prison. He surrendered an additional $92 million in forfeited assets. Langford Capital Holdings was dissolved by court order. The remaining employees were dismissed with 60 days severance. The 30-day continuance on the divorce stretched to 6 months. Cassid's agreed-upon settlement, which had been built on the assumption that she had a wealthy boss/lover funding her future, fell apart. Stockton's assets were frozen within 48 hours of the arrest. He could no longer pay her divorce attorneys. When the divorce was finally finalized in February 2025, the terms had reversed completely. Federal asset disclosure requirements forced Cassidy to reveal she had accepted approximately $340,000 in consulting fees from Langford Capital that she had never declared as marital income. Those fees were subject to civil restitution under the federal money laundering investigation as proceeds of unlawful activity. She lost the house. The federal government took it as part of the asset recovery process. She lost her job at Langford Capital. The firm collapsed within 4 months of Stockton's arrest. She lost her professional standing in Charlotte. She was not criminally charged. She had been an unwitting facilitator who became negligent. The U.S. Attorney's Office made the determination that she had not knowingly participated in the laundering. That determination saved her from prison. It did not save her from civil restitution. Her share of the marital assets was reduced to approximately $8,000 after restitution claims were settled. I got primary physical custody of Briar and Bryn. Cassidy received a supervised visitation through the school year. Unsupervised summer. Continental Heritage Bank promoted me to Chief Compliance Officer in March of 2025. The Lanford case became a teaching example in compliance training nationwide. I spoke at 3 industry conferences over the following year. I never publicly named Cassidy in any of my speaking engagements. It is now spring of 2026. I am 46 years old. I live in a smaller house now in a quieter neighborhood of Charlotte. The kind of house I could have lived in my whole life if Cassidy hadn't always wanted more. Briar is 12. She likes to read. She is observant like her father. She forgave me sometime around her 11th birthday. She has never asked me about the courthouse day. I do not know if she ever will. Ben is 9. He plays baseball. He is starting to forgive his mother. He still calls me 3 nights a week from her phone just to ask if I'm eating dinner. I tell him yes every time. These days it is true. I cook dinner most nights. I go to soccer games. I drive the kids to school every morning at 7:35 a.m. the same time every day. I have not dated since the divorce. I think I might eventually. Not yet. Cassidy lives in an apartment in a different part of Charlotte. She works as a part-time office manager for a dental practice. She is quiet now. She does not perform happiness anymore. The kids see her every other weekend. She has not apologized to me. I do not think she is capable of it. I no longer need her to be. Reginald Whitlow visits for dinner twice a year. We have become friends. He is teaching my son how to play chess. He brings my mother flowers when he visits, which embarrasses her in a way that pleases her. Stockton Langford is in federal prison in Petersburg, Virginia. He has 12 years left. Beatrix Langford reached out to me last summer. She wanted to thank me. We had coffee at a small place near uptown. She told me her father's arrest was the first time in her life she had felt free. She is 33 now. She works at a nonprofit that helps women leave financially abusive marriages. She is somehow the best person to come out of that family. Sometimes I think about that morning, November 7th, 2023, the kitchen table, the new perfume, my wife declaring she wanted a divorce. She was so confident. She thought she had a wealthy boss waiting for her, a future plan, a victory already secured. Heck, she did not know that the man at the table across from her had been silently watching her for 4 months. She did not know that the man at the table had a folder of federal banking violations on the closed laptop in front of him. She did not know that the man at the table had already made his phone call. She thought she was leaving a defeated husband. She was actually walking into a federal investigation that would consume the next 18 months of her life and end with her boss in handcuffs in a courthouse hallway in front of 200 witnesses. 9 months of silence is a long time. It is also exactly long enough, if you use it correctly, to dismantle someone who underestimated you. So, let me ask you something. If you discovered that the person your spouse was leaving you for was committing a federal crime and you were the only person in a position to expose it, what would you do? Would you confront them immediately and start a fight you might lose? Or would you stay silent for 9 months, let them believe they had already won, and let the federal government do the work for you? Some battles you fight by speaking. Some battles you win by saying nothing at all. If you have ever been underestimated by the person who knew you best, drop 1 word in the comments below. Just 1. Tell me what they thought you were. I read every single comment. If this story moved you, hit the like button. Share it with someone who has been written off by the people who should have known better. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. I will see you in the next.